trauma healing is a professional act carried out by trauma healers. Trauma healers are people who have gone through the training of trauma on how to heal trauma. So these people are people who work in areas where they try to help people cope with any form of trauma they've gone through. So what we do is that it's a form of counseling and therapy, psychotherapy that is applied, different forms of either art. We use different things just to help the person cope with the trauma they've gone through, and we've been getting results, good results, if I may say, at the end of the day. So I'm a psychologist, by the way. So my PhD is in psychology. So I'm trained. Aside from that, and I attended a trauma healing course with the Nasarawa State University. So I'm certified to train, to help. We're already doing that. We're working in a few camps already. What we do is that we go to these camps, we support, we have meetings with the community, their leaders. We've trained people, some community members. When I say community members now, I'm talking about people who live within the IDP camps, those who can read and write. We've trained them on how to offer psychological first aid. That someone is troubled right now, that first contact you have with the person, how do you help the person calm down? Then they also help us identify people who have more persisting trauma, who are more deeply affected by the crisis. We now go in there and we have sessions with these people. Some group therapy where we sit with them. If we have identified that they share common signs of trauma, we sit with them and talk. If not, we sit with the others. We sit with individuals, and then we talk with them. Because when we do that, we get a better result at the end of the day. See, a lot of these challenges have their roots in poverty. Not parents not being able to cater for their children and thinking that maybe giving out their children in early marriages eases the burden on the family, right? So what we've been doing is sensitization. We've been doing sensitization, and we've been doing empowerment, livelihood skills activities to empower girls and women in the camps. Because if the woman or the girl has something doing, she's less vulnerable to those kind of violent attacks. But I must tell you that there's a limit to what little organizations like ours can do. There's even a limit to what any international organization coming to work can do, because everybody works based on budgets. You understand? Once your budget runs out, there's little or nothing you can do. But we empower these girls. We teach them livelihood skills. We teach the women. We even teach the girls how to say no, safe skills, life skills, how to cope with advances, whether forceful or unsolicited. And then we try to talk to parents too. We work with NAPTIP to carry out sensitization in these camps and in Benue State generally, because the issues of trafficking we have heard, moving girls from the camps, is not necessarily people who are in the camps doing it. It will be people coming from outside to do that. So the sensitization has included talking to the general populace, trying to pass across that information to stop those acts of violence against women and girls, particularly those living in the IDP camps. We're doing our best, but I'm sure maybe based on your findings, you'd say it's not enough. And truly, all hands need to be on deck. It's not something one or two people can do. When it comes to quality education, let's note that when camps are formed, they are short-term measures. When you say it's a camp, it's supposed to be short-term. Shouldn't exceed 6 months max. But when you say it's a shelter, now the people are going to live there for longer, right? But our camps in Benue State that were set up with that emergency background, you know, knowing that this is an emergency setup, it's just something to tide the people over for a short while, have become permanent shelters for people. They become permanent shelters. Some children have been born in camps that don't know where they come from. As far back as 2013, 2011, there are people who have been born in those camps. So we still have the population is increasing, not just because of violence, but because of a lack of, use of family planning methods. I don't know how it happens. They are reproducing, and incidentally, you can ask anybody that has worked in any of the IDP camps. IDPs have a tendency to have multiple births, more than other normal families. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a research topic that someone should take up. So we keep having twins, people giving birth like that. And then in families that are already finding it very difficult to cope, in some of the camps, you find out that some organizations have been able to set up temporary shelters. They are still temporary shelters, but those shelters are not enough, you know. So those are the challenges. How much food? Before now, when the camps first opened up, a lot of philanthropists, a lot of humanitarians, a lot of people were going to the camps to give, but the giving fatigue has set in. People are also facing challenges. So the last thing on their mind is taking food to the IDP camps. We've had interventions through NEMA, that's from the federal government to the state and things like that. But no matter how much you distribute, it's just for a while. They go back to, you know, being hungry. Yes, we have some organizations offering medical services and all that, but it's not enough. It's not enough at all. So those people are actually living in a very low level of life. Their quality of life is poor right now, I can tell you that. And the best bet would have been for them to go back home, but nobody can go back home if their communities are not safe. And even if communities are safe, we need to rebuild some of those communities because some of their major facilities and resources have been broken down. So you see, it looks like it's a very long journey. It's like a vicious circle that we don't know, you know, how to put it to an end. There was a lot, there was a growth. When I was the program analyst, that was a few years ago, there was a lot of growth when it comes to having children. And what the UNFPA did was to try to provide family planning services in these camps. I'm aware that we worked with the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development to offer family planning services. But it's one thing to have the family planning services available, and it's another thing for the people to be willing to access the family plan, because issues of culture, issues of religious background and all that. So we still had to do sensitization. A few still came, but yes, there's a huge population growth in those camps, and because of that, you find out that you have plenty children of school-going age who are not in actual schools, except for the volunteer teachers that many organizations have provided in some of the camps who try to teach the children. But some of those children have not seen the four walls of a regular classroom since they were born. We do therapy for them. We can do family therapy, group therapy with all members of the family, and then we do individual therapy depending on how deep we assess who is most affected by the trauma. So we offer, and those services, by the way, we offer them for free. So, but the issue is, how many camps can we visit? How many people can we, even if when we face one camp, we go with a limited number of counselors, and then we work with the communities. But these are things that they need constant follow-up. Therapy is not something you just do one-off and go. It's a constant follow-up until you see the person is able to cope. The person has received some coping skills to carry on with life. But most times, I must tell you, you've noticed that the distance of most of the camps from the town is not a small distance. So you have to think of the transportation. You have to think of your security also, and how many local organizations can afford to pay, you know, for good security to move with them to those communities. So those things also deter us, the humanitarians who are trying to intervene. You see, very important question. When we talk of human capital development is the sum total of a person's health status, skills, that for you, that you acquire in your lifetime to make you live a very productive life, right? That is the human capital we're talking about. Now, a huge number of Benue State human capital are living in the IDP camps. Benue State is basically agrarian, right? We farm. Now, these farmers, most of them are in the camps, so they cannot farm. And where they farm in host communities, the scenario you have painted of not being paid can occur. And it looks as if they have no say because it's not their community. You know, they are not indigenous of that place and they are just being accommodated in that place. Those things happen. It is the role of the government to draw up strategies, to develop plans, bearing in mind that we have a set of people like this. It can't be business as usual. It can't be the normal plan that has been set before. This target group of people, the IDPs, need to be given special consideration. We need to look at the child now who is born in the IDP camp and say, in 10 years, what is the human capital index of this child that was born? And then begin to plan and develop strategies based on what we foresee would happen in the life of that child. So it places a lot of responsibility on government. It is government's responsibility to do those things. Of course, they can seek for help from everywhere, right? But to initiate it, it has to come from government because government's sole responsibility is the security and the well-being of the people of that, you know, of its governing area. So government has a huge role to play when it comes to that. Being proactive on the part of government, right? What government can decide to plan and decide that since these camps have been there for too long, they can post some teachers, staff of the Ministry of Education there, and make that place, designate that place, even though a temporary school, but let them have all the facilities they need for them to have proper education. There are a lot of, all these children are out of school. They are a sitting time bomb. Because there's when we carried out some therapy on these children, we found out that most of them carry a lot of resentment in their heart. So even though we're fighting with external terrorists, we're probably grooming some internal terrorists that whose state of mind, let me put it like that, is being conditioned by the environment in which they find themselves, by the circumstances that push them into where they are. And you find out that if nothing is done about it, these children are growing with that mindset that they have been abandoned by the world, abandoned by government. Some of them even feel abandoned by their parents. Imagine the mindset of that kind of child. So apart from the regular education that we might organize, take teachers to go and teach them, we need to work on the mind of the children in the IDP camps. Very important. Is to revamp our camp management structure, right? Every camp is supposed to have civil defense, NSC, that's NSCDC, right? Police, they are supposed to have SEMA, that's the Benue State Emergency Management Staff and all that in every of the camps. I'm not very sure, especially for camps that are designated unofficial for now, I'm not sure they have that kind of setup. So like you said, yes, the state of security in those camps will be very poor, right? So it is now that the governor has said he's going to acknowledge all camps as official camps and designate them official camps, I think that proper camp management structure needs to be set up in those places. The proper structure having all the security agencies represented at those camps will be done, and that will probably boost the security of the places. Also, working with local vigilante and local security apparatus within the communities where these camps exist will go a long way in helping to brief their security. We've had those cases where we brought them together to some roundtables in the town where we've had that discussion with MACBAN, the leadership of MACBAN in Benue State, the leadership of AFAN, that's the All Farmers Association of Nigeria. We've had meetings where we've brought the leadership together. And yes, the MACBAN has poured out their hearts about the challenges they have faced in terms of their cows getting rustled and them not getting it back and things like that. And the communities have also aired their part. But you see, one thing we need to note is this. The places where the people who come in to do the attacks are not necessarily the same people who you see on a day-to-day basis living in the communities. So it becomes challenging because even MACBAN leadership has stated that when they go out on their sensitization, they are also being accused by some of their kith and kin of being complicit in the whole conflict that is going on. You understand? So, and then there are times when you want to invite them to a meeting, but they don't feel safe. Particularly, you know, no matter how neutral you try to create the atmosphere, they don't feel safe because they consider themselves the minority. So they don't feel safe coming out of wherever they are to come and attend meetings. So sometimes that is a challenge, because talking with the leadership of MACBAN, I believe it's not enough if we cannot get to hear from the actual people who come to attack. But how do you get people who are on a killing spree, who come in to just kill and go? How do you contact them to have discussions with them? So the best any civil society organization can do is reach out to MACBAN, that is seen as an umbrella body, you know, for headers in the state, and have discussions with them. I must say that there are a lot of interactions have gone on between MACBAN and AFAN and CSOs and other international agencies. We're hoping to see good results at the end of the day, and we can only just be hopeful. We have a peace commission that just came on board. They are not, I don't think they're up to 2 months. They are just as old as this governor. So, and I know they've been holding meetings, seminars. So I think they are putting their act together, you understand? They are putting their plans. Probably when they are fully prepared, they will involve more stakeholders, and maybe at that point, some of us will get to know about their plans. But a peace summit would be a welcome idea. Resolving this crisis, you know, when you have a faceless, should I say, party, where you can see one party, but you cannot see the other party, it becomes very difficult having dialogue. Because for me, dialogue is one of the best ways to solve any problem. Listening to what the grievances of the other person is, listening to this one, and coming to a compromise on way forward, right? But if we are not talking to the right people, so for me, I think one way of solving this challenge is to ensure that we're speaking to the right people. Another thing that a lot of people have touted as being the reasons for the crisis is the law, the open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law. So maybe the law has been there for a while. Can we review it and let's talk about it? What are the areas that people are bothered about? Have another public hearing, do a review of the law, and then I don't think the state is averse to that. But where you say a state has to ban, a state cannot implement its law just because you are not comfortable with it, I don't think we're being reasonable there. I think it's about bringing it to the drawing table, and everybody should sit and say, okay, this is the part we're not comfortable with. Can you explain, or is there a way we can make it so that it's fair? It's supposed to be fair to everybody. So if we feel that there's no equity in the way certain probably punishments were prescribed and things like that, let's go back to the drawing board. But to say that a state should totally remove its law, I don't think we're being reasonable. So compromise is one way to go. Each group has to give something. Each group has to agree to let go of something. And we must, too many lives have been lost. Too many lives have been lost. And I think that if the parties involved can put aside ego, put aside this win-win mentality, I must win all, winner takes all, I think we'll be able to move forward. For me, the situation in Benue State as a humanitarian is tiring. It makes you fatigued. Because you seem to be doing the same thing over and over. When you think you have made some progress, then you hear news of one attack or the other somewhere. And anytime there's an attack, the implication is that a new set of IDPs are being created on already stressed camps where we have not been able to provide everything they need. Every attack or rumor of attack or confirmed attack puts pressure on us as humanitarians, because we begin to think about what next to do. How do we help these people? We are first responders. We have to be on site to help these people. So it can be tiring, and I'm hoping that and we can find an end to this particular crisis of farmers and herders in due course. I also know that the federal government has a huge role to play when it comes to the issues of security. I'm hoping that they can beef up security, that people who break laws must be seen to be punished. It shouldn't just be lip service. People should actually be punished, and the world must see that justice is meted out. It might serve as a punitive, as a deterrent, right, to those whom I want to, in all forms, even violence against women and girls. Let us stop paying lip service to the laws we have in place. We have beautiful laws in place now, but the thing is, we need to implement those laws, and the populace must see that we are actually implementing it fairly and equitably. I believe that if we work on the rule of law, we know we are implementing properly, and we're able to improve on security in our country and Benue State generally, I think the situation will get better. So that's my prayer. I'm hopeful that Governor Alia and his team that he has set up will be able to do that, and that he will also look within the state for expertise. There are many people with expertise here to help him solve. Sit together, create a think tank to help you solve some of these issues. We're prayerful and we're hopeful that Benue State will regain its lost glory as the food basket of the nation. National Humanitarian Plan, that's true. Before now, they complain when civil societies, when we raised that complaint, we were told that the state did not have its humanitarian response plan. So last year, civil society organizations with support from the government, working with SEMA, that's the State Emergency Management Agency, came together and put together a humanitarian response plan for the state, and it was launched in the state. We felt that was a prerequisite to the federal government, you know, looking at Benue with the eye of need. The last time the United Nations Resident Coordinator came to Benue, he stated that what he saw in Benue was worse than what he had seen in the Northeast. Just Benue was worse than everything he saw in the Northeast. Yet, despite all those statements and confirmations, Benue State is still not captured. And for us, it's a matter of concern, because we do not think that when it comes to the issues of the welfare of the people of a state, it should be based on, it should be politicized. It should not be about whether the governor of the state is in the good books of whoever. It's about the people of Nigeria who are suffering. Okay, but now we want the world to know that Benue State now has a humanitarian response plan, and that plan is available for anybody to access and see what the way forward is with Benue State. We are hoping that we can get attention from international community and the federal government focused on Benue State. There was a visit by the UN REC a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and his comments were that he's willing to work with Benue State because he has seen that the situation in the camps is terrible, and they were willing to see how they can pool resources to the state to help the state do better. We're hoping that with all these visitations, it doesn't just end there, that something happens at the end of the day.